8,000 years ago, ancient humans in South America discovered something extraordinary. A plant that killed hunger, that eliminated fatigue, that made the cold manageable, and that numbed pain well enough to perform brain surgery. That plant was coca, and the substance it contains is cocaine. And for 8,000 years, before anyone called it a drug, it was simply medicine. Let's start with the oldest evidence ever found. The oldest evidence of humans chewing coca leaves dates back to around 8,000 BC in Peru. Archaeologists found fragments of pottery depicting humans with bulging cheeks, the characteristic sign of someone chewing a wad of coca leaves. They also found the leaves themselves, preserved alongside ancient Peruvian mummies. Burial sites from 2500 BC in Peru show coca leaves stockpiled specifically to assist the dead in their afterlife. Even in death, coca was considered essential. Now let's understand why ancient humans found coca so useful. Because the reason is not what most people expect. The Andes Mountains in South America are extraordinarily high. Many ancient communities lived and worked at altitudes above 3,000 meters. At that altitude, the air is thin, oxygen is scarce, physical labor is genuinely brutal. Coca leaves, chewed slowly, release small amounts of cocaine into the bloodstream. This speeds up breathing, increases heart rate slightly, and makes the body more efficient at using the limited oxygen available. It also suppresses hunger and fatigue, allowing ancient workers to labor for hours without stopping to eat. Raw coca leaves also contain calcium, potassium, vitamins B1, B2, C, and E, and significant protein and fiber. For ancient humans living at high altitude, coca was not a drug. It was a survival tool. Now let's talk about the Inca runners, because this is where the story becomes extraordinary. The Inca Empire was one of the largest empires in history, spanning thousands of kilometers across South America. They had no horses, no wheeled vehicles, no postal system in the modern sense. They had chasquis, on-foot runners who carried messages across the entire empire, running hundreds of kilometers across mountain passes, through jungle, over rivers, to deliver royal messages. They chewed coca leaves the entire way. The coca suppressed hunger, so they did not need to stop and eat. It managed fatigue, so they could run for hours without rest. And it helped them breathe in the thin mountain air. Coca was not just used by runners. It was central to Inca religious ceremony. Native Peruvians chewed coca leaves during religious ceremonies, believing it allowed them to communicate with the gods. The Inca word for the coca plant was caca, which is the direct ancestor of our modern word coca. Now let's talk about something that most people find genuinely shocking. By 1500 BC, ancient Andean healers were using coca leaves as an anesthetic during brain surgery. They mixed coca leaves with saliva, then applied the paste to the surgical area to numb it. This was one of the earliest forms of local anesthesia ever used by humans. Trepanation, drilling holes in the skull, was performed across multiple ancient South American cultures. And the evidence shows the patients survived. The bone around the holes had regrown, meaning they lived long enough after the surgery to heal. Now let's talk about what happened when the Spanish arrived in 1532. The Spanish conquistadors initially called coca an evil agent of the devil. The Peruvian bishops tried to have it banned, arguing that chewing it conflicted with their religious beliefs. But then the Spanish tried to use indigenous workers in their silver mines. Without coca, the workers could barely function at high altitude without it. So the Spanish made a swift and entirely practical decision. They legalized coca, taxed it at 10%, and gave 10% of that tax to the church. The evil agent of the devil became a taxable commodity within decades. By the mid-1500s, around 8% of Europeans living in Peru were involved in the coca trade. Now let's fast forward to 1860, because this is where everything changed. German chemist Albert Niemann isolated the active ingredient from coca leaves for the first time. When he placed the crystals on his tongue went completely numb. He had isolated cocaine, pure, concentrated, completely unlike chewing a leaf. The medical community celebrated it as a miracle drug. It was used as a local anesthetic, as a treatment for depression, as a painkiller, as a general tonic. Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, used cocaine himself. He described it as giving him exhilaration and lasting euphoria, and he prescribed it widely to patients for depression. One of his patients who he prescribed it to suffered psychosis. hallucinating white snakes crawling across his skin. Now here is the part almost nobody knows. In 1886, John Pemberton invented a new soft drink. He named it after its two main ingredients, coca leaves and cola nuts. Coca-Cola. The original Coca-Cola contained cocaine, and it was marketed specifically for its euphoric and energizing effects. It was enormously popular, because of course it was. Cocaine was not removed from Coca-Cola until 1903. Now let's come back to where this all started, because here is what the whole story actually shows. For 8,000 years, coca was used exactly as nature intended, slowly, in leaf form, with the full fiber and nutrient content of the plant moderating the effect. The intoxicating content of the raw leaves is so low that it would not likely have produced euphoria. Ancient humans were not getting high. They were managing altitude, managing hunger, managing pain. It was when modern chemistry isolated and concentrated the active ingredient, stripping away everything the plant had put around it, that the problems began. Ancient humans started taking cocaine 8,000 years ago to survive one of the harshest environments on Earth, to numb the pain of surgery, to reach their gods. The coca leaf was not a drug to them. It was a plant, with a job to FO. And for 8,000 years, it did that job without destroying anyone. It was only when modern science removed everything the plant had carefully placed around its most powerful ingredient that the story changed.